Now, can I please invite Ryan and Pedro onto the stage? We will take some questions. To summarize, Ryan's spoken to us about information management plans and how the public sector, as a public sector client, they're approaching their strategy towards the same. And Pedro's spoken to us a little bit about what they're doing with data centers within the private sector. Yeah, you can sit down. And Steve, I'll hand over to you. The questions coming through the feed and any questions from the crowd here, please. Thank you.
Does this work? Yes. So we'll take questions in here first because we can answer the questions online, in fact. But if there's no questions here, I'll read the online questions out. Anybody got a question for Ryan or Pedro? One at the back first.
It's a question there for Ryan. You mentioned earlier on about the Uniclass system when you developed the handover strategy. Did you follow the ISO guidelines in the naming convention for the assets when you were transferring them over?
Slight thing missing.
Thanks. Can you hear me? So we followed the ISO naming convention for the documentation, but for the asset naming, we have the approach which the working group went down was using the COBE to so like the asset type, where it's located, more as a tag to identify what it is, what system it's connected to, what facility it's in, and whereabouts it is in the building. But yeah, if you're referring to the naming conventions within the ISO for the documentation, that was followed as part of within the information standards section of the workbook.
Great.
Hi, gentlemen. They're really good presentations. I've probably got two questions, so I'll start with you, Pedro. How important is it for a client to have a mature digital system on the asset side to know what you're asking for? And is it the case, like you showed a digital twin up there, I don't know if you've got that for every asset, but it becomes very clear what you need if you work in that way. But we've got lots of clients who know they need to ask for information, but their systems are just not like that. And I guess, Ryan, maybe the same question for you. How difficult is it to define the asset register and get the data when the client's own systems are not really where that data needs to be? So I don't know, just want to consider that one.
Do you start? Can you hear me? Yeah. It's difficult because many clients don't know what they want or how they want at the end of that life cycle. Well, they do know, but they don't know how. So it's quite difficult because now there are systems that can provide you that that digital twin that I showed that was an example, but sometimes the client doesn't want to pay that for that, or that they don't know. If you show that this is really easy to maintain the asset, but the software that we have in the market right now can or cannot do that. So we, as a business, we develop our own software. We have a business intelligence department that we create our own software based on that first step of requirements. So that means that we will know which is our target. And that is what the client side has to think about. Change their mind in terms of, okay, or we invest in creating that software, or we need to go to the market, see what there is right now, and based on that last step, create our requirements. So this is the two different ways. That is really difficult because sometimes clients don't think in that far away step. So they are thinking the first one, that is the design, the CapEx, the design and the construction phase, but we are not thinking operations because that is far away. But essentially, if you check the percentage, is 70% of the life cycle is the operations and maintenance. 30, 20 is so it's quite difficult, but the maturity is really, really, really important to go and arrive to that last step that is the digital twin, we call it.
Could you repeat your question?
I guess it's about the maturity of the clients you're trying to help, right? So, I'm actually working on a DFE project in England, and the client is just offering us a SharePoint to send all this massive amounts of data they've now asked for. and they've asked for a CD and none of them want to use it, right? So I'm not sorry, excuse me, mentioning a client like that, but how much how much work has to be done on the client side to make sure they've got the systems to handle this and the processes to make this usable when they launch? Like how much is to be done there?
Yeah. So, a really important point.
And Ryan,
And it's probably this.
I just remind you, we're actually going to discuss this afternoon.
Yeah.
That's
fine.
Second session.
Let me
So short answer.
let me provide a teaser then. There's a slide which I didn't show, which shows our roadmap in terms of that very thing. How do we support clients with no resource and no budget, and don't want to be locked into a proprietary system, to be able to manage that information in the operational phase. It's interesting you talked about SharePoint there, because we are looking at that as one of the options. But going back just quickly to the asset naming part, clients, I think there's a big sort of issue about clients not knowing what's in that building at handover. There's also an issue about getting quality asset registers at handover. So what we've done with the resource is develop a process to generate that asset register through the design and construction process. As I said, in that back enforces quality in terms of the information that's being produced. I think we'll leave it there and we can maybe pick it up after. But yeah.
So we'll pick that up again in session 2, where we're going to talk about the next stages and dealing with that very issue. And as I said, we haven't got time to answer more questions now, but you can write your questions down, and we'll answer them as we go. So if you've got a question for Ryan, there's a couple online. We'll answer those while other speakers are talking.
Thank you, Steve. So now, Peter, I invite you on stage to tell us a bit about how you guys do things.